NextGenWeb is very lucky to be joined today by Dr. David Farber, distinguished professor from Carnegie Mellon and commonly referred to as the grandfather of the Internet. Dr. Farber, we appreciate your time today. On the panel, you mentioned two specific concerns, among many others, but two specific concerns around the FCC and PRM, also known as net neutrality. One of those was the ability for folks to actually innovate on the Internet, and the other, a fear of regulating something that we don't know what it's going to look like tomorrow, that being, of course, the Internet. Could you elaborate on those points?
The Internet has gotten where it is because there's been a almost organic development of new features, new ideas. Try it, see what happens. Some things move to the commercial sector. Some things started in research environments and moved to the commercial sector. And so it's been a very vibrant environment with fundamentally no intervention on the part of any government in practice. If it's necessary to somehow go and say, is this a valid way of using the Internet? Is this a valid network management thing? It's going to slow down innovation to a crawl. First of all, it's not clear that government agencies in general have the technical talent to, that's not saying anything bad about them, they just haven't developed that structure. And so going to, for argument's sake, the FCC and arguing a fine point of network protocol is going to be somewhat interesting, to put it mildly. And that's just going to slow things down. People are not going to be willing to do experiments on the live network. They'll do still academic experiments. But there'll be I think, a lot slower adoption of these, and that will limit our capability of doing things.
So it's fair to say the government really shouldn't get into the business of network management and innovation?
No, what it should do, I think, is to establish a set of principles, which it had, 4, maybe 5 principles, and basically hoist a warning that, look, we believe these are the way people should behave. If somebody complains loud enough or we see something that violates one of these principles, we're going to look very carefully at you. Okay? And notice, by the way, there have only been 2 violations that anybody knows of any of these principles. And both of them were not very intelligent on the part of the people who did it. And since then, there's been essentially none. So we may be solving a problem that doesn't exist. I mean, a lot of it is promises made during the election process. And nobody knows how it's going to pan out. The second point was what?
Well, certainly, we were talking about should the government really be in the business of network management, which you discussed, but also innovation.
The government should encourage innovation, not attempt to decide which is good innovation, which is bad. We have other mechanisms for doing that. We're in a roughly competitive environment. It's worked fairly well. My effective cost for network bandwidth hasn't gone up very much. The wireless space is certainly competitive. I think there's no demonstrated need that there's an urgent need to do for the government to intervene yet. And their antitrust, there's a whole bunch of other things. Constraint of trade, antitrust, endless other. I'm not a lawyer, so I don't, although I've been exposed to enough to worry myself about it. And most Federal Trade Commission and most cases, companies have learned to steer clear of involvement. And I think that's been an effective way of doing it.
Well, Dr. Farber, as the former Chief Technology Officer at the FCC, we certainly hope they heed your advice, and we appreciate your time today.
Okay, thank you.